Section 5 is all about echinoderms. So this is the last section in Chapter 2. And remember that all of the organisms we're talking about in Chapter 2 are invertebrates. That means that they lack a backbone. So our mollusks didn't have a backbone. Our arthropods, like crustaceans and insects, lacked a backbone. Echinoderms will lack a backbone as well. The objective that goes along with this section is to describe the typical echinoderm characteristics. Now, echinoderms might be completely new to you. You might have looked at the title of this section when you started your notes and thought, what on earth are we talking about? An echinoderm is a radially symmetrical invertebrate that lives on the ocean floor. Remember that radial symmetry is oftentimes considered to be less advanced than bilateral symmetry. And yet we're talking about these guys at the end of Chapter 2. Are they really less advanced than an insect? Are they less advanced than a mollusk like a squid? We'll find out. Radial symmetry, remember, has a few advantages as well. Common echinoderms include sea stars, which are most often what we think of when we think of echinoderms as scientists, sea cucumbers, sea urchins, and sand dollars as well. All echinoderms are going to have four things in common. To start, they're all going to have an endoskeleton. Their endoskeleton is an internal skeleton, just like what you and I have inside of our bodies, but instead of being made up of bones, it's made up of calcium-rich plates that form spines. So if you went to pick up an echinoderm, you might be unfortunately surprised to find out that it's really sharp. Those spines help to detract predators from consuming them. All echinoderms also have radial symmetry. Now, one unique thing about their radial symmetry, it's usually found in multiples of 5. So if you think of a sea star as having a star-like shape, it has 5 legs that span off of the center. That's very common when we're dealing with an echinoderm. We see body parts, legs, appendages, whatever you want to call them, in multiples of 5. Echinoderms also have a water vascular system, which is an internal system for fluids, for liquids, that actually does a lot of really interesting things for the echinoderm. The most important thing is that it allows the echinoderm to move. So the water vascular system is going to allow tubed feet on the undersides of these animals to gain suction and then to release that suction after the organism, the sea star or sand dollar, whatever we're dealing with, has pulled itself forward. Because echinoderms lack bilateral symmetry, they don't have a distinct head, and they don't have a centralized region where all of their sense organs and nerve tissues are located. Remember when we talked about symmetry, however, that we said that there are times that lack of a head can actually be a disadvantage. Organisms with radial symmetry have the ability to sense their surroundings evenly in all directions. That can make them more successful predators. That can also help them to more effectively escape predators when they are the prey. Echinoderms are either going to be male or female. They have one set of reproductive organs and not both. It can be really hard to tell the difference, though. If we were actually doing a dissection in class, you probably could not decide or decipher whether you had a male or a female specimen. Eggs are fertilized through a process called external fertilization. That means that the female basically just drops the eggs off in the water and the male comes by and fertilizes them as they're floating around in the ocean. And then after the eggs have been fertilized, the first organism we're going to see is not a little tiny sea star. It's actually going to be a little polyp that looks completely different. So echinoderms go through the process of metamorphosis just like the insects that we talked about in sections 3 and 4. Interesting connections. Adult echinoderms, like we said on the last slide, are always going to have radial symmetry. But interestingly enough, the larval version of an echinoderm, the polyp, has bilateral symmetry. So the young has the more advanced type of symmetry than the adult. Kind of interesting. Echinoderms, unlike our arthropods, have fairly simple nervous systems. Their nervous system is really easy to map out. In the center of an echinoderm, like the sea star that you see there on the screen, there's a nerve ring. It's a circle of nerve fibers. It surrounds the mouth of the echinoderm. It's right above the stomach of the echinoderm as well. And then off of that central nerve ring, we see radial nerves. Now, the word radial refers to each spoke that runs off of the center. So the diameter of a circle would be the distance all the way across, and the radius would be the distance from the center point out to the end. You can think of the radial nerves or the radial tubes we're going to learn about a little bit later as being sort of like the radius of a circle. They branch off from the center and continue up just one appendage. At the tip of each arm of an echinoderm, we're going to find a simple eye, and that eye is only going to be able to sense light and dark. Typically, a simple eye only has the ability to sense that light or dark. And then the rest of the body is going to be covered in cells that allow it to not just sense touch, but also chemical signals in the water as well. We saw that in some of our mollusks from section 1. The water vascular system of an echinoderm is where things really get interesting. So like we said before, this is a system of tubes, a system of canals that fill with watery fluid, and that's circulated throughout the entire body of the echinoderm. It's sort of like the circulatory system of the echinoderm. You and I have a circulatory system that the heart fuels, it pumps blood all over the body. The water vascular system in an echinoderm helps it to not only move, but also to eat and breathe and sense its environment. So this water vascular system is extremely, extremely important. You'll notice that again, there's a central ring, a ring canal, and then off of that ring canal, we have radial canals, just like we had the radial nerves. So they're going to branch off of the center and up each arm. Connected to the radial canals, hopefully you can see in the picture that there are tubed feet, and those tubed feet help the echinoderm to move. Sea stars are predators. So we think of Patrick Star as being your quintessential example of a sea star. He has those thicker limbs, but there are other types of sea stars as well, like the brittle star that you see here on the screen. Sea stars are kind of interesting predators in that they're able to begin digesting their prey outside of their bodies. They secrete this sort of icky, corrosive digestive juice that breaks down their prey as they're holding on to it, and then after that prey becomes kind of mushy and easy to digest, then it's sucked up into the body. Sea stars are also interesting because they are able to regenerate limbs. So if you took all of the arms of a sea star and broke them off, you wouldn't end up with a dead sea star. In fact, you would end up with 5 new sea stars. They can regrow limbs up to 4. Because of this, sea stars are pretty durable creatures. Other echinoderms include the brittle stars, like you saw on the other screen. They're very close relatives of the sea star. They just, instead of having 2 feet with suction cups, have 2 feet that they use for catching prey. They're not helpful in moving. Those brittle stars have thinner appendages, thinner legs to them or arms to them than regular sea stars do. Sand dollars, sea urchins, and sea cucumbers have no arms at all. The sand dollars have little spines on them that help them to burrow into the sand. So that picture you see on the screen is an example of a sand dollar. It doesn't really look like a living thing, but it is. Sea urchins are going to be covered with movable spines, and those spines not only help to protect, but they also help the creature to move. The 2 feet are going to extend out between them. There are 5 strong teeth at the center of a sea urchin that it can use for a host of different tasks. It can use it to scrape algae, it can use them to chew seaweed. They can also use them to crush other organisms like small mollusks or coral. That's one of the reasons that a sea urchin can be classified as a predator. And then sea cucumbers, last but not least, have 2 feet on their undersides. So they look sort of like giant leathery cucumbers, as you might expect, but they're able to move through 2 feet just like the sea star. Their mouths are surrounded with tentacles that they're able to send out and then also to contract back into themselves, and they use those tentacles to sweep food toward their mouth. They're actually filter feeders. There is a homework assignment that goes along with Chapter 2, Section 5. That assignment will be due at 2 p.m. on Friday. Feel free to tune into our Hangout if you have other questions about echinoderms, or if you have questions about anything else that we've covered in Chapter 2.